Yo, what is up? I'm Kamakmi, and this is going to be my overall reaction feels about Fishman arc. It certainly feels like it's been a much longer arc than it has been just because of how long it took me to get around to watching it. My bad. That being said, I want to start towards the beginning and work my way through so that I don't forget things. I'm still going to forget things, but every time I try to summarize them or write down notes to kind of get my mind there, I forget something. So I just have accepted that I will now. I almost completely forgot, for instance, that we technically start the arc with our crew getting back together in Sabaody. I'm still probably butchering the name of that place, but I'm a stupid American and I suck at pronunciation. So yeah, they get together and we basically have our sweet reunion in a sense. We get to showboat a little bit and put those giant P whatever robots to waste, which is like a huge leap in juxtaposition from the last time our crew had gone against them 2 years prior, where we got our butts whooped by the real one. So that was kind of like really nice to get that. And everybody has a different look. And my God, something I didn't even up on until nearly the end of this arc is that Sanji's hairstyle changed. There was something about him that looked a little different, and I was just assuming it must have been like the chin fuzz, right? But at some point I saw an image of him from an earlier arc, like the original, like East Blue, and I was like, he looks odd. They did his hair wrong. And then I thought about him like, no, he's just flipped like the way he does his hair now, which I think is quite interesting. But now I'm really confused about his eyebrows. Like, does he curl the eyebrow? Is that like a personal choice of his? And does he just always curl it to, what is that, to the right? It's just such an odd detail that like I never thought of until he changed his hair direction and I realized it's going on both eyebrows. Okay. I know that's weird to bring up, but I wanted to say it before I forgot it, and it had to do with like the new character looks. And of course, Zoro, he lost an eye, and we still don't know how exactly, but I'm gonna guess Mihawk or monkeys or both. Or, Zoro somehow out of stubbornness. Like maybe his eye got stuck or something and he had to cut it. I don't honestly, I wouldn't put it past him. But we got our crews back together. We just got our bubble on the ship thanks to Rayleigh, and he sent us on our merry way. I miss Mary. So we get into the sea. We have a short little merry adventure on the way down, and Luffy tames an octopus, Kraken, just because. And I love that we revisit that guy later. Even it's just like all the simple things that Luffy does that come back and have a major effect later. I'm starting to see that. We get down there and everything seems to be okay until Madame Charlie, I think is her name, whom we now also know is the sister of Arlong. She has a vision, and basically Luffy is burning down their whole civilization. And to this moment, we still don't know if that is like gonna happen or if it was symbolic. I don't know. Like maybe it will happen in the future, but I think even if it does happen, he will do it for a reason, right? And golly, we've got the introduction of the whole royal family. There's a giant mermaid princess and her three brothers and a king, and the queen died horribly a while ago. We will get her flashbacks later, but basically, when our straw hats show up, they're initially welcomed, so they get to go straight to the palace to have a party. But when we get there, news has already changed and they want to arrest us for basically crimes we haven't done yet. But we also get some kidnappings pinned on us very quickly by a bounty hunter named Caribou, who is a devil fruit user who followed us from Sabaody, I think, and he had originally been with his crew and they tried to attack us while we were underwater, I think. It's very vague memories. But basically, he becomes a side plot that we all forget about multiple times. And everybody mentions when they do remember him, like, oh, that guy's still around? Oh, okay. So we get everything framed on us, and it just goes to heck. But that's okay because there's also a Fishman uprising at the same time, where a lot of racist guys basically want to take over, make everybody leave who is a human sympathizer, and then they plan on going to the World Summit, I think, and destroying somehow all of the celestial dragons. I'm not quite sure what they had planned end game, but that was their end, kind of what they were shooting for. And they had a bunch of drugs that Hody, apparently, one of the bad guys, we'll get to him, got a hold of. So we added a whole other element to this of drug abuse. Kids don't do drugs, especially performance enhancing ones. There's always going to be a downside. And yeah, so we got all this stuff going, and Luffy befriends the princess by accidentally falling on her giant boobie and not knowing better. And her, he's just simple, and she is sweet, and so she forgives him very easily. And he ends up defending her because let us shift to the bad guys of this arc. We've got a guy who's creeping on her and has been for ages, and he is an adult, and she is still technically a minor. I think she's 14 now, maybe 16, but I'm gonna say minor still. And he's got a devil fruit that essentially allows him to throw things at her, and they'll always go at her. So she's been kept protected in a tower for ages. And that guy is paired up with Hody, who wants to do this uprising, and it's kind of some some mutual thing there where he gets the princess, etc., etc. Let's just say this entire arc sums up to racism bad, drugs bad, give people the benefit of the doubt, don't, deny them basic rights because of what they are. Uh, we get Jinbei. He came back, of course, while we were there at the island, and he ended up coming in clutch. It was great. He and Luffy butt heads quite a bit. I actually quite like this because it's the first time I think he's challenging Luffy as a captain, because before they were just partners in crime, and now Jinbei's like, Luffy, you are a captain. Why don't you do these normal captain type things? But he's learning from the crew around Luffy that Luffy might not do things the normal captain way, but they still get things done. And at the end of the arc, when Luffy needs a blood transfusion, Jinbei's there in clutch like usual to donate his blood, and for Luffy to offer a crew membership, which he doesn't outright decline, but he kind of puts a maybe on, and says, look, I've got responsibilities that we learn is connected to Big Mom, which is one of the emperors of the sea in the New World, the second half of the Grand Line. And basically, somehow in the last 2 years, the Sun Pirates got connected to her, and by extension Jinbei, and he's honor bound to her, and he can't quite join Luffy yet. But he said he will in the future, which better be sooner than later. It might be sooner than later, because Big Mom is a big problem, because while we're dealing with all this Fishman issues stuff going on, the angry Fishman destroyed her candy factory, and she has taken over protection of this island since Whitebeard died. And so she wants that candy for a tea party. And now that the candy's gone, she's mad. So Luffy takes the blame for it and says he ate all the candy himself. And he gives her the treasure that he recently collected that had been stolen from the Fishman by Caribou, and he's like, here, you can have it. But the biggest problem is that in that treasure collection is a Tameko box, essentially a very fancy cascade box, and it used to have the drugs that Hody took, but he left it empty, and the treasury guy didn't want people to know that that had been stolen, so he put a bomb in the chest, and he was like, if anybody ever discovers that has been stolen, they won't live to tell about it. So we've unintentionally gifted Big Mom and Emperor of the Sea a giant bomb along with all the treasures in exchange for eating all of her candy. And although I'm sure Luffy would have happily eaten all the candy if there had been more to eat in the first place. And so it's like we've got like a big hot mess of stuff going on. This is just centralized around us. Not to mention, we learned about the shifting of power with the Marines, like with Akainu taking over, Aokiji piecing out, and the former guy Sengoku, he retired. I don't know if maybe they're gonna make him stick around like they made Garp, but we also learned, I think at the end of the last arc, but maybe at the beginning of this arc, that Garp has to kind of still do teaching and like do some sort of role for teaching, but he retired also from the Marines, which is interesting. I'm wondering what like direction they're gonna take. If probably more aggressive if Akainu is leading them, obviously. And we recently resurfaced from all of our adventures near the ships that Tashigi and Smoker are on. So that's maybe going to be the start of the next arc, which is going to be really exciting to see how they've glowed up. But also, I really want to get Luffy to punch Smoker in the face and surprise him by using Haki, because up until this point, we've not been able to touch Smoker, and I need to have, it sounds kinky saying this, but I need to have Luffy touch him. It doesn't have to be in a kinky way, obviously. It can be a punch to the face. I'm cool with that. And maybe knock a cigar out of his mouth. I'm looking forward to that. Um, Overall, though, the arc, the bad guys were so weak. But I liked all of the side characters. I got quite a kick out of all of them. I could have done without the bad guys. And I think I mentioned in one of my reactions that Caribou, I think, is essentially like an analogy for this arc, you know, or like some sort of like that's what it represents. And I think he represents the bad guys. Very forgettable, weak sauce, unnecessary. But the arc itself, like the rest of it, was fine. You know, I could just have done with just like a really sad backstory about the mom dying and then learning that it was a Fishman who did it. You know, like you don't have to have all this twists and turns along the way for that, honestly. But whatever, it is what it is. Thank you, Oda. I still enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm looking forward to the next arc for sure. All right. So I know I was gonna forget something, so I'm gonna artfully edit this in, or just terribly edit it in, whatever. But I wanted to touch on the legendary weapons that we've kind of had name drops now. There's Pluton, there's like Neptune, and then Poseidon. And obviously, these are like very Roman names that are godlike, you know. If I am remembering my studies, I think that those are the three brothers, technically. I think that is Zeus, um, well, obviously Poseidon, um, and then I'm trying to remember Neptune. Which planet is Neptune supposed to be god wise? Is that the guy who's in hell? Or is Neptune the other guy, Hephaestus? Or like there's some other god of hearth or something? I kind of want to go do some research in Roman mythology, but at the same time, I kind of don't, because I don't want to like get too much into it and then maybe spoil myself for One Piece somehow. But these weapons are very important, and I'm gonna have to pause this because I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna start barking at some point. But we've learned that Shirahoshi is essentially the reincarnation, or like I guess every so many hundreds of years they have a mermaid who's born who is a sea king queen, and that's her. And there's some sort of like deal that the last queen made with a guy named Joy Boy like 800 some odd years ago, I guess the start of the whole Void Century issue, and he failed something and broke his promise, whatever that promise was. But I'm pretty sure it's related to the ship that they have, which I thought was going to be the weapon. But no, they're like, no, she's the weapon because she can control the Sea Kings, which actually makes me really curious about the other weapons that we've learned about, right? Like, essentially, we've got the one that's over in Arabasta, and if we were to understand that there's a ship involved with that one as well, then maybe there's also some other grand being that's connected to the ship. Likewise, maybe they're the one, like, I'm just like, I'm wondering if, like, for each like celestial or godly being name, like Poseidon or Neptune or I'm blanking on Pluton, whatever. For each one of them, maybe they have a ship, because the whole idea is that this is a planet that's mostly ocean, right? And if they each have a ship somewhere, or the schematics for one, like Frankie's old boss, right? That you can make the ship to, whatever. Like maybe you're supposed to come together at some point to do something, right? I don't know. I'm just me guessing. I'm loving this lore that's percolating here. Clearly something happened 800 years ago that was terrible, but it sounds like it's almost like somebody stuck a pin in whatever was happening then, and they're like, oh, it'll happen again later, because that's kind of like what's being alluded to with the whole, like, the mermaid is reborn every so often, right? Like, it's clearly like a cyclical thing. And I've also been thinking about, like, the world in general, right? Like, oh, it's a huge world that's mostly a sea. So, like, why would you need necessarily a ship underwater in the first place that's being stored underwater? That's weird. And why would Fishman have it in the first place? Because they don't need a ship. And also, why would they need Sea Kings to pull it, right? Like, obviously, that ship is meant for humans, right? So, I feel like there is some old deal, or some long time ago, different civilizations had been planning and or going to be doing something grand, and it fell through. And so, like, my current theory, and like, keep this in mind, I'm years behind in this anime still, right? My current theory is that the sea levels were way lower ages ago, and they knew there was a flood coming, and they prepared for it, but for whatever reason, Joy Boy fell through. He was not able to complete his task. The flood happened, and the ship was kept with um the fishmen, with the idea that maybe the flood would get worse later. Like, maybe they're like, the ocean levels were raised to a certain point, right? And then they're gonna stay there for a while. But then they're like, oh, it's gonna happen again someday, because that would take us back to the whole Aqua Laguna, and how they're talking about how, like, oh, the waves have never been this high before, like, to our knowledge, and like, this is crazy. It's like water levels are rising, and maybe that's kind of leading, like, winking and nodding towards this idea that some other great catastrophe is going to happen again. And that's fascinating to me. Don't do that, buddy. Don't do that. Dogs. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out there. And so I'm going to edit this terribly into my reaction to the whole series and arc or whatever. But I hope that we get more answers, but I'm sure we will, but probably not quick enough to appease my mind, because I feel like Oda likes to, trickle these in. I mean, it's a big series, and I'm many, many years behind still. But you know what? I'm getting there. And I certainly hope that y'all will be sticking it out for me too. There might actually be a slight delay between me uploading this reaction to the, like, my feelings for the arc and the start of the next one, just because I kind of want to be able to pile up a few more edits to have them ready, and I don't know if I will have them done by the time this gets uploaded. So if there's a slight delay in a couple extra days, I'm very sorry, but I just, like, I need to, like, get a few more in the tube now that I have my process set, and I figured out how to, like, actually pause technically for during my reactions, so I can, like, look at things and talk about them longer and not have to worry about syncing problems. So yeah, there is that. I want to thank all y'all for essentially being here, and anybody new, you are awesome too. I just, appreciate all y'all. And what are any last second thoughts for characters? Everybody got to glow up. It was amazing to see all of them fight. I don't think we got to see enough from Robin, so I would like to see some more in the next arc from her. Um, Chopper, I would love an explanation about how he managed to get control over his, like, giant form. Uh, I want to learn about Zoro's eye. I don't think we're going to learn about his eye. You never know. Mm. Nami got her new navigator watch thingy, so that might come into play a little bit more because it technically can sync to like two different islands now, I think is what was explained to her, which is super cool. Um, Luffy, I did not mention, but I gotta give props to his, I think it's the Red Hawk punch or whatever he did that's dedicated to his brother. I loved it. That was so, so sweet. And who else am I forgetting? Usopp, I would love to learn if there is a limit to the bag of tricks. Like, they're all seemingly things that he got from the island. I'm just wondering if there's something he can replicate forever or if he's going to run out of those, out of his materials. You never know. I don't know. Um, Golly, if I forgot anybody else, I feel so bad about it. But my phone keeps blinking at me and telling me I'm out of space. So I don't want to have this video end abruptly. But I wanted to get some thoughts out there. So I'll keep it short instead of how it has been this entire time for the entire arc for me reacting to it. And again, thank you all for being here. And I seriously cannot wait to find out what happens next. Until then, I bid y'all adieu.